Okay, welcome. I'm Leo and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you might be coming from. The Where we start this off was with the third step prayer. If you'll help us out there, Rob.
I certainly will. Hi, everybody. My name is Rob Kay. I am a recovered alcoholic, and we're going to start with the step three prayer, which is on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. I do thy will always.
All right, Rob, thank you. And we are on page 76. We're going to go up one paragraph, Rob, and we'll start at now we need more action.
You got it. Page 76, everybody. Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we will go to any lengths for victory over alcohol.
Sure. And one of the things that we want to talk about here is we're just looking at steps 8 and 9. So we're not really actually doing steps 8 and 9 just yet. We're getting ready to do that. And you will use what you did in your step 4 and 5. That's a great starting point for those that you may have harmed in regards to making amends, which is part of making the list in step 8 and then actually making the amends in step 9. Um, so uh, you have to do your part. And it's one of the things that we're going to be talking about here is just to reinforce is not just an apology is not just is not the amend. If a person that you talk to and inquire about what you can do to make up for whatever transgression you may have been a part of, and they say just a simple apology will suffice, then that is obviously appropriate. But otherwise, it isn't just calling somebody, going face to face with somebody, or writing a letter, depending on how best to communicate with that person. Do you actually just start off with an apology? You talk about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and you then ask what it is that you can do to make amends for whatever, like I said, transgression that you had. And lastly, going to any lengths. Sometimes people take that to the extreme. Basically, what we're saying is that you're going to be courageous and you're going to go after making amends for those that are difficult, those that are easy, and some of those that are in between. It's up to you how you start. Some people like to start with the easy ones and then work up to the more difficult ones. Other ones like to get the more difficult ones out of the way first and then work on the easy ones last. It's really up to you as long as you get the list done and you um, stay with it. So going to any lengths isn't necessarily meaning that you're going to walk, 10 miles in the snow, all uphill, that type of thing. We're talking about just basically making the list, being as complete and accurate as possible, and then again, being courageous and going after that and communicating in the best way possible. Rob?
Yeah, and if we haven't the will to do this, we ask. Who do we ask? We ask our higher power.
Yeah.
Okay? And you know what? Remember, when we go to do our amends face to face, which is what they talk about in the book here, okay, we're not going alone. We're bringing God along with us. We've asked God how to do this. And we're not afraid because we have God with us. And that's the whole thing about it is that, you know, we bring God along. We are never alone. So please remember that. We're on page 76, everybody. Probably there are some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize a spiritual feature on our first approach. We might prejudice them. At the moment, we're trying to put our lives in order, but this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we have gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. We lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores. We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message, but our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set wrong right. He's going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries.
Sure, and I think that that's pretty straightforward with regard to not leading off with the spiritual or religious kind of approach to things. Again, what we're basically talking about is to approach the person, ask, just tell them what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then ask what it is that you can do to make amends. And if it does end up being a good opportunity to talk about the spiritual nature of your recovery, then please do so. But otherwise, that would be left to either a later discussion or not at all. One of the things I wanted to define as diffident is the modest or shy. It's because of a lack of self-confidence. It's a word that it means either modest or shy because of a lack of self-confidence. And these, as we look over the list of business acquaintances as friends, remember, we're just now starting to prepare ourselves for our step 9, and we're making sure that the step 8 or the list of people that we've harmed is complete and is accurate. So again, we haven't kicked off with doing our steps 8 or 9. It's just actually, I guess we are doing our step 8 in regards to making sure the list is complete, but you're not stepping off with your step 9 at this point. And remember, this takes some effort and a lot of humility as you go into this. Rob?
Yeah, one of my favorite lines in the big book, and there's many of them, which you all know about, but this line is our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Each morning when I wake up, I try to take self out of the equation and to bring God forward. What would God have me do in this situation? What would God have me be? And so my purpose is to be of value to other people. You know, I love the way Art always says that, you know, he doesn't want to just help people. He wants to be of value in other people's lives. That everybody who I touch during the day, you know, finds value in what I've done. You know, it's simple gestures, opening a door, buying a coffee, paying it forward, whatever. But it's just being, you know, a relatively nice person in sometimes a cruel world. You know, a smile can go a long way into making somebody's day just that much better. But to fit ourselves takes effort on our part. It's not always easy, you know, because as Leo said, you know, we have to humble ourselves. What would God have me do in this situation? And that's what it always comes down to. You know, it's not what I want, because if I did everything I want, I'm going back drinking. Why? Because the obsession will return. I'm not doing God's work, I'm doing Rob's work. Okay. And it's not about me anymore. I lived my life the way I wanted, and it didn't work out well. I was not happy. You know, I was of help to nobody. You know, you talk about the bedevilments. You know, I couldn't be of real help to anybody. You know, I was unhappy. You know, all these things. Now I'm doing God's work and I'm helping other people, and it makes me feel good. Okay, and that's what's the important part. So when I wake up in the morning, God, help me be of service to other people today. Take away myself, and what would you have me be? It's a great way. Well, I find it's a great way to live,
Mm-hmm.
doing for others. So, page 77, everybody. We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our conviction with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. Maybe he has done us more harm than we have done him. And though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret.
Yeah, and this is good instructions on how to approach another person. We're talking in this case, probably the more difficult ones to approach, which is the ones that are labeled in the case of the book here as our enemy. And it's likely that they may still harbor ill feelings towards you in regards to whatever past transgressions that we may have been a part of. So when it if it is good, you want to come at it from a very positive manner and attitude, and try your best to talk to the person, let them know what you're doing, again, why you're doing it, and ask what it is that you can do to make amends. And hopefully they will be responsive. According to the book here, it more likely than not, I think you'll be surprised at how responsive and accepting people are for your approach. Rob?
Yeah, we forgive others because it sets us free. We've had this deep-seated anger. It's cut us off from our higher power. So now we get rid of this, and it's a whole new way of living. Remember, it sets us free. And, we go now. What I love about the big book is that they don't leave you hanging. Bill never says something and then, it's up to you to figure it out. He helps us here. You know, we're going to talk about 8 different amends to make in the next few pages. As Leo said, the first one was an enemy. You know, somebody that we've bitterly disliked. We've had deep down hatred. Now we're getting rid of this. Why? Because it's been eating our lunch. It's taking all the nutrients out of it, out of anything we've eaten. Now, when we get rid of these, okay, we are getting the nutrients. We're getting stronger. We're getting better. We feel better. We look better. We smile, where before all we could do is frown. So remember that. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply, we tell them that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so. Never trying to tell him what to do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the results.
Absolutely. And this is a good thing to take to heart. It would be very easy, and it has happened where you approach the person, there's still resentments, the ill feelings well up, and then all of a sudden now you're criticizing, pointing fingers, and blaming the other person. You have lost the entire intent of what you were set out to accomplish. So in doing that, you want to make sure that you stay on your side of the street, basically saying that you're going to talk about you and your misgivings, transgressions, etc., and keep it on a positive note, but do not, under any circumstances, begin to talk about them and whatever they may have been a part of to do that. And we behave like this because it's the right thing to do. It's very much an important element of making amends, and one that you've got to be very, very careful not to fall into the pit and allow yourself to start pointing a finger. Rob?
Yeah. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is, and this is a promise, if our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the results. Okay. We never argue with somebody. Okay. If they don't want to hear, they throw us out of the office. We tried to make the amends. We did our part. We were willing to do it. We would go to any length. The person threw us out of the office. That's their prerogative. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Okay. But on page 67, we treat it's a sick man prayer, how to overcome resentments. Okay. And it says we avoid retaliation or argument. It just doesn't work. Okay. We don't argue with people anymore. You know what? You dig your feet in, I dig my feet in. You yell louder, I yell louder. Okay. When we get to that point, neither one of us is going to back down. Just because you raise your voice doesn't mean I'm going to say, oh, yeah, now I hear what you're trying to tell me. And now you're right. No, I just dig my heels in a little bit deeper. Okay. And we realize it doesn't work. We avoid retaliation or argument. Okay. Now, here's another couple of promises. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we're calling upon admits his own fault. So feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam.
Yep. And so really thinking about this is that the attempt and here is another piece of it is that attempt should be very genuine and heartfelt and sincere. So you really want to make an honest and courageous effort at being positive and making the amend if at all possible. If they throw you out, then again, just like Rob just said, you've done your part. You can check that one off and note that it may be something that you might be able to circle back to in some time down the road, and maybe not. Maybe it's just too far gone, and you're not going to be able to right the wrong in the manner in which you would hope that they would be accepting to. However, and like it says in the book here, most times you're going to find a positive response to your overture. And so just watching this, it could be that an old friend becoming an enemy now becomes an old friend again. Maybe the enemy at least smooths things over. You agree that it's probably best that you guys don't cross paths anymore, but nonetheless, everything is made right, and you feel really good about that. And I would tell you, based on my own experiences, some of the tougher amends, if they go well, it does in fact really improve your confidence and your desire to go to the next amend and make it as well. So look forward to those positive responses. Rob?
Positive responses are what you were going to get most of the time, because most people, when you approach them with an apology or an amends, okay, and I put in the chat what an amends is. An amends is a return for something lost we suffered, to set right something that is wrong, usually through the fault of another. Now, Bill, our friend Bill from New Jersey, always puts this analogy in, and I love it because I can picture it. If I'm driving down the street and I take out your fence, okay, I'm not paying attention, whatever, and I take out your fence. Okay, I stop my car, look at the damage to my own car. I go up to your door and I knock on it and I go, you know what, I'm sorry, I had an accident. I knocked your fence down. Okay, sorry about that. I get in my car and I leave. Well, a few years ago when I was drinking, number one, I might have taken your fence down. I wouldn't have gone to your door. I would have just kept going. Okay. But today, Okay, I'm going to make amends for that. How am I going to make amends? I'm going to fix that fence, whether I pay somebody to fix it or whether I fix it myself. Okay, that is an amend, putting back things back to the way they were beforehand. Okay, I hope that analogy helps you because to me it makes so much sense. Okay, an apology won't do it. Okay, we have to put things back to the way they were. Okay, now we're going to talk about the second amends, creditors. Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors. Telling them what we are trying to do, we make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors, no matter how far we have to go. We're liable to drink if we are afraid to face them.
Right. And that is an important one. And I think that this is one that makes there's a lot of fear in approaching a creditor, especially when you do owe them money and you're not necessarily able to pay it all back at once. And what they're saying here is one, approach them. Again, we're being courageous and upbeat and positive. Let them know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then try and ask for what it would be to take care of the amend. And obviously, paying back the money may be rhetorical, but it's still a good idea to go through the process. And then from there, work out some terms, and maybe they could take, and you could spread it out over 6 months, for example, and just hypothetically just spread it out and on a monthly basis, make a payment until everything is paid off with an agreed to end date so that that will work out. A lot of times the people will be, especially creditors, they want to get their money. They're not going to cut you off. They're not going to mess things up so that you can't make payments. They would rather you make those payments. So a lot of times creditors are going to be very amenable to working out terms for you in that regard. Rob?
Yeah, and it's better to get $10 a week than nothing, and never see your the money coming back. So creditors will bend over backwards usually. And I've also heard about an awful lot of people going to financial institutions for help, and they can arrange incredible discounts on what you owe, etc. So you know what? Look into all these things and see, the experts about it. You know, God put all these experts into our lives. Take advantage of it. It's like doctors. Doctors are there for a purpose when we're not feeling well. Okay. So whether it's psychiatrists, psychologists, regular doctors, whatever, use them. That's what they're there for. Now we're going to get into criminal. Kim, listen up here. Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense which might land us in jail if it were known to the authorities. We may be short in our accounts and unable to make good. We have already admitted this in confidence to another person, but we are sure we would be imprisoned or lose our job if it were known. Maybe if only a petty offense such as padding the expense account. Most of us have done that sort of thing.
Okay. And so with that, it is taking a look at this. One and first and foremost, and I know we've said this before, if you have done something that is a criminal offense, it's really a good idea to consult an attorney first. And in doing so, you get the best advice from a legal standpoint in how you might approach this. In fact, an attorney may be able to work it out without you having to, one, lose your job, and two, at worst, go to jail, and may be able to work out, again, terms of some agreement that would be amenable to those that have been harmed, and then also to the legal system, as well as to yourself and going forward. But again, we talk about being courageous, and I think it's worth noting that it's pretty courageous if, in fact, you had done something criminally wrong and that you are at a point where you would end up going to jail over it. I can't think of a more courageous act than to make amends by serving your time and getting through whatever problem that it is that you have there. That's a tough road to go, but one that that you must be aware of and really take seriously into consideration. And again, you should be consulting an attorney uh, and getting the best advice possible before you actually act going forward. Rob?
Yeah, and we're going to read in a couple of pages that we ask God to help in the drastic step, whatever drastic step is indicated. We must not shrink at, because we know that God is going to protect us. Okay, so we don't shrink at this. You know, we've asked God for His protection and care with a complete abandon. Okay, so, top page 79, everybody. Maybe we are divorced and have remarried, but haven't kept up the alimony to number one. She is indignant about it and has a warrant out for our arrest. That's a common form of trouble, too. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any length to find a spiritual experience, we ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything.
Yeah, this is important. And again, I reemphasize the fact that this may, in fact, include incarceration. You want to be sure that you are facing this head on and being very courageous in doing so. The idea here, and go back up to the one example here with regard to alimony or even child support. The last thing a judge is going to want to do is put you in jail and remove any ability for you to pay back whatever it is that you owe. They're going to try to work out terms, and hopefully you will abide by those, obviously. But nonetheless, it's one of those examples, again, that you would want an attorney. You'll want to go at this with the best legal advice possible. In doing so, hopefully everyone will be amenable to you working out terms with regard to paying back alimony or back child support, etc. Rob?
Yeah, and here's something I got out of writing the big book by William Shaver. But such an easy success may not always be the case. If after seeking advice, consulting others involved, and asking God to guide you, there appears no other just and honorable solution than the most drastic one, you must take your medicine. Trust that the eventual outcome will be right. And that's from writing the big book, page 485, which I thought was incredible. You know, we may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. Why? Because if we don't do what we're supposed to do, we only go through half measures, what's going to happen? We're going to go back to the way we were, getting that sense of ease and comfort from a drink. Then the allergy takes over and we can't control the amounts we take. See, a lot of people don't do their amends. They think, oh, living amends is enough. Well, it doesn't talk about living amends in this book. Living amends is doing what you're supposed to do in a God-conscious world. You're supposed to take care of your kids, okay? You're supposed to do the right thing. You're supposed to help others, okay? That's what we're supposed to do now, okay? A lot of people say, well, I'm doing living amends. That's a cop-out. They're not making amends. So please keep that in mind. Usually, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be the hasty and foolish martyr who would needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit. A man we know had remarried. Because of resentment and drinking, he had not paid alimony to his first wife. She was furious. She went to court and got an order for his arrest. He had commenced our way of life, had secured a position, and was getting his head above water. It would have been impressive heroics if he had walked up to the judge and said, "Here I am." We thought he ought to be willing to do that if necessary, but if he were in jail, he could provide nothing for either family. We suggested he write his first wife admitting his faults and asking forgiveness. He did, and also sent a small amount of money. He told her what he would try to do in the future. He said he was perfectly willing to go to jail if she insisted. Of course, she did not, and the whole situation has long been adjusted.
Yeah, so a great example here. We've talked about it, and again, those that have been aggrieved are certainly not going to take away your ability to pay them back if you do, in fact, owe them money. It would be silly for them to do that, and most people, except for the most spiteful of people out there, so obviously somebody that suffers from the human condition can also get emotionally involved and decide to quote, teach somebody a lesson. But I think that that is the rare and very, very rare case indeed. So this is just another way of kind of putting what we've already said, Rob and I've been talking about, and that is that you approach it head on, you admit you're wrong, you talk about what it is that you might be able to do in order to make amends. You hope that they'll be receptive to it. Most likely they will be. And then you go to and actually make the amend and you pay back what you owe. Rob?
Yeah, I'm going to come back to what Bill Shaver had in his writing the big book. Trust that the eventual outcome will be right. Remember, belief in God is that something could happen. Trust in God is that it will happen. Okay, we trust that God is going to protect us. He's going to look after us. You know, if we're meant to go to jail, we're going to go to jail. Okay, but most of the time that wouldn't happen because you can't get blood from a stone. Judges don't want to put you in jail if you are willing to do the right thing. Okay, so please keep that in mind. We trust God to keep us safe and out of harm's way. Page 80, top of page 80, everybody. Before taking drastic action, which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission, have consulted with others, ask God to help, and the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink.
Right. And that, so we've been talking about one-on-one type of amends and transgressions. It could be that you admitting something to another person could implicate other people. That could also harm other people. So, for example, let's say that you had remarried and you now may have to pay back alimony, back child support, etc. That's going to take a chunk of money out of the budget that is intended for the new family, and you have to make sure that everybody is on board and understands what's going on and why and what you're doing. In addition to that, you also want to make sure that you don't want to implicate other people in such a way that they also get in trouble for what you've done, and you need to be very careful about how you approach that as well. So this is a good point to make when there are others involved and others that will be impacted by you making this particular amend. Rob?
Yep. So there were three things there. Secure their consent, obtain, have consulted with others, and ask God for help. Okay. We must not shrink. Page 80, everybody. This brings to mind a story about one of our friends. While drinking, he accepted a sum of money from a bitterly hated business rival, giving him no receipt for it. He subsequently denied having received the money and used the incident as a basis for discrediting the man. He thus used his own wrongdoing as a means of destroying the reputation of another. In fact, his rival was ruined. He felt he had done a wrong he could not possibly make right. If he opened that old affair, he was afraid it would destroy the reputation of his partner, disgrace his family, and take away his means of livelihood. What right had he to involve those dependent upon him? How could he possibly make a public statement exonerating his rival? After consulting with his wife and partner, he came to the conclusion that it was better to take those risks than to stand before his creator, guilty of such ruinous slander. He saw that he had to place the outcome in God's hands, or he would soon start drinking again, and all would be lost anyhow. He attended church for the first time in many years. After the sermon, he quietly got up and made an explanation. His action met widespread approval, and today he is one of the most trusted citizens of his town. It's all happened years ago.
Certainly. And so here's a great example of somebody that one was going to impact others. They consulted with them, talked through it. They felt like it could be ruinous, and so they wanted to make sure that everybody was on board just in case it did go to down that path. He gained the approval and then ultimately the support of his family and his partner. He went forward, admitted his wrongdoing, and in doing so, endeared himself to the community, and it turned out in this case all was well. Again, I think that these are important things to kind of think about when you've got a tough amend to make, in that more likely than not, it's going to turn out very positively, and you're going to have a good feeling when you walk away from making that amend and doing the right thing. The other person is going to probably be very receptive, and in turn be very positive back towards you. And in this case, other people got involved, and again, those that were even bystanders looked upon this with respect. And I think you have seen where people do courageous things like that, and they get the support of so many others that they don't even know or count on. Rob?
Yeah. And the conclusion of this story notes that
Okay, everything froze up on me.
I just want to throw that in for a little bit of knowledge and stuff. You know, we got to do the right thing, and if it puts us in a bad light, it puts us in a bad light. But if we don't do the right thing, we're going to go back to drinking. Remember, we said we would do anything. Anything.
Anything.
Okay? The chances are that we have domestic troubles. Perhaps we're mixed up with women in a fashion we wouldn't care to have advertised. We doubt if, in this respect, alcoholics are fundamentally much worse than other people. But drinking does complicate sex relations in the home. After a few years with an alcoholic, wife gets worn out, resentful, and uncommunicated. How could she be anything else? The husband begins to feel lonely, sorry for himself. He commences to look around in the nightclubs or their equivalent for something besides liquor. Perhaps he is having a secret and exciting affair with the girl who understands. In fairness, we must say that she may understand, but what are we going to do about a thing like that? A man so involved often feels very remorseful at times, especially if he is married to a loyal and courageous girl who has literally gone through hell for him.
Yeah, so we're really kind of going into an area where there's going to be some potential of additional harm if things are admitted to. So let's think about that a little bit. Additionally, if you are feeling very remorseful, then my position would be is that you would cease the quote affair and move away from that way of life. But again, I think that it's, one of the biggest problem with people getting along and doing the right things and everything is communication. It's when communication breaks down that things start to go awry, and that is more often than not the case. So in this case, suggestion is begins to feel lonely and sorry for himself. It's time to sit down with quote, this loyal and courageous girl who has literally gone through hell for you, to talk about that loneliness and to see if you can get through it and actually strengthen the partnership between you and your wife, or husband or partner or boyfriend or girlfriend, etc., than it is to branch out and do something different, such as what is being portrayed here. Rob?
Yeah, and I just want to go to page 3 in Bill's story just for a second for a little bit of levity. There had been no real infidelity. For loyalties to my wife helped at times by extreme drunkenness, kept me out of those scrapes. So I just wanted to throw that part in. You know. Okay, whatever the situation, we usually have to do something about it. If we are sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Not always, we think. If she knows in a general way that we've been wild, should we tell her in detail? Undoubtedly, we should admit our fault. She may insist on knowing all the particulars. She will want to know who the woman is and where she is. We feel we ought to say to her that we ought to have no right to involve another person. We are sorry for what we have done, and God willing, it shall not be repeated. More than that, we cannot do. We have no right to go further. Though there may be justifiable exceptions, and though we wish to lay down no rule of any sort, we have often found this the best course to take. Leo, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I
No
was
problem.
had a dog coming by and shaking himself. Sorry about that. So yes, that there's a lot of good points here. You can see how admitting things can damage things further. It can also involve other people that you will also get, quote, in trouble. So it's a good idea to probably take a look at that and understand whether or not it's the right thing to do or not. Rob?
Sorry about that. Okay. Our design for living is not a one-way street. It is as good for the wife as for the husband. If we can forget, so can she. It is better, however, that one does not needlessly name a person upon whom she can vent jealousy. Perhaps there are some cases where the utmost frankness is demanded. No outsider can appraise such an intimate situation. It may be that both will decide that the way of good sense and loving kindness is to let bygones be bygones. Each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. Keep it always in sight that we are dealing with that most terrible human emotion, jealousy. Good generalship may decide that the problem be attacked on the flank rather than risk a face-to-face combat.
Sure, and I want to make a point here. It's not necessarily that you're not going to come clean at all. It's that you want to do, if you're going to do that to be mean or spiteful, then it's not necessarily a good idea. And this is really one of those just situations where you're going to have to evaluate it on a case-by-case basis and to knowing what is the right thing to do. But nonetheless, right thing to do is not to have gotten involved in the situation to begin with. Good communication with your partner is paramount. And but if you do find yourself there, then it's important to make sure that you are being open and honest. And it also should come with a cease and desist and going forward. So anyway, Rob?
Yeah, I put in the chat, page 74, the rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. Keep that in mind. If we have no such complications, there is plenty we should do at home. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is to keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to the wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated. Passing all understanding is the patient mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today. would perhaps be dead.
Yes. And so, treating people that were closest to us in a manner in which is very negative, spiteful, hurtful. You take out your resentments and you harm the other person. It is that you really have to understand a couple of things. One is it's going to take some time, even after you and it's going to also going to take probably multiple conversations, and it's going to be time will tell. Positive actions over a period of time will begin to soften things up, and you'll be able to make amends as you go along with that. So, if not, continued to be hurtful and harmful, certainly could end up finding yourself alone and without anything. You can lose a lot from that, and go back to drinking. And from there, you would find yourself potentially dead. Rob?
Yeah, and it says here, being sober, it's not enough. Being a dry drunk, you've heard that expression before, where somebody has quit drinking, but they're still as miserable and as mean as before. No change. The whole idea about the 12 steps is for us to change. Now, change our way of living and looking at life. You know, Instead of thinking about myself all the time, I'm thinking about others. What can I do for you today? What can I do for Kim? What can I do for Kicken? What can I do, to make your life a little bit better? Because by me worrying about your life, me thinking about my life, I'm happy. I'm helping you. That makes me happy. Gives me a purpose in life. You know, I love the next line about the cyclone. So let's get to that. But the alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections have been uprooted. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. He is like the farmer who came up out of the cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To the wife, he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?" Pete's favorite line.
Yeah, it is. So this is a paragraph that a lot of people quote. It's a good one. It's a great description of. I'll admit it's a great description of how I was at times with my drinking, and uh, I broke hearts. I killed relationships, and I uprooted affections, and therefore just was terrible to those around me with regard to my actions, and that's being selfish and inconsiderate. At times I was like, just leave me alone. All I want to do is drink. I don't know why you're bothering me. The fact that you're bothering me is what's causing all the problems. If you just leave me alone, I won't be upset with you, et cetera, which is really not the truth. And says, sobriety is enough. And there was a time for myself that I was a dry drunk. I was going through the process. I was still in the beginnings of recovery. And I felt like that was enough. Couldn't they just forgive me and move on? And obviously, that was not to be for good reason. And I'm still, even after the years that I've got in sobriety, still working on making things better, and especially working on my emotional sobriety, which is something that is not necessarily covered in the book, but something that I have, quote, kind of graduated to and trying to work on as well. And but what a great paragraph that we have here.
It is a great paragraph, because it reminds me of the old, Midwest, talking about the wind doesn't matter. But it just goes to show if there's no change, there's no change. So what's the point? You know, if we are not willing to go through the 12 steps to have a spiritual experience in order to change us so that we can, instead of isolating all the time and pushing people away and living a life that's all selfish and self-centered, what's the point? Okay, we want a new way of living. Okay, and that's, and that is the greatest way that we can live. Top of page 83.
Why don't we go ahead and stop there?
Okay.
The good part, and then bring Bill in, sir, if you will.
Yeah, hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. Yeah, what Bill Wilson is doing here, he's basically telling us, he's giving us instructions or suggestions on how to make amends. And before you make amends, it's a really, really good idea to go over all of this stuff with your sponsor or your network or whoever is advising you through this program. And it's also a good idea to pray about it and make sure you have God with you when you're going through this kind of stuff. And he's just giving us a whole bunch of different suggestions here on different ways to make these amends. And basically, we need to do this because we agreed that we were going to go to any length to defeat alcoholism, to get victory over alcohol. And if you're going to go to any length, that means you're going to do the rest of the steps, and you're going to do everything that the step says. And this step is telling us we need to make amends to the people that we hurt. We became entirely ready to make to fix all of this stuff. And amends means to fix or repair the damage. That's what amends means. It doesn't mean that, like Rob mentioned, it doesn't mean you're going to say you're sorry. Saying you're sorry is not amends. That could be part of your amends. But just saying you're sorry is not amends. If you owe somebody money and you say, I'm sorry I took your money, that's not going to do anything. You have to give them back the money. That's all they're interested in. They don't care whether you changed, whether you're better, whether you're not better. All they want is their money back. That's all they care about. So you have to fix the wrong that you did. That's basically what this is. And the reason we do that is so that we can get rid of our guilt and remorse. And we don't have to walk around looking over our shoulder, because that's the kind of thing that makes an alcoholic go back out and drink. We're afraid to walk down the street because we might see somebody and they might come after us or whatever. And this is the kind of stuff that alcoholics wind up drinking over. And we feel guilt and remorse because we did something that we know is wrong and we didn't fix it. And the way we get rid of our guilt and remorse, we pick up a drink. That's why this amends stuff is very, very, very important. And if you know anything about Dr. Bob's story, Dr. Bob originally got sober when Bill talked to him and explained that what Bill did so that he could get sober, and he explained what alcoholism was to Dr. Bob. He explained the information he got from Dr. Silkworth, and Dr. Bob originally got sober. But Dr. Bob was willing to do everything except make amends. And the reason he wouldn't make amends is because he would have to go to the people that he owed money to or whatever his amends was, and he would have to admit that the reason that he did what he did was because he was drunk and he spent all his money on alcohol, and he didn't want to do that because he was a surgeon, and if he admitted he was an alcoholic, he was afraid it would ruin his business. So he didn't do that, and he wound up going back out and drinking again. He went on his last binge when he went to Atlantic City, and then when he came back, he realized that he had to do what Bill told him, and he went and he made his amends, and after he made his amends, he never drank after that. That's why amends is important. It's not important for the person that you're making amends to. It's important for us, because if we don't make this amends, we still carry that stuff in our guts somewhere, and sooner or later, it's liable to make us drink. And that's just not a good thing for an alcoholic. Anything that we can do to help us not pick up a drink is a good thing, and making amends is one of them. And that's why Bill put this in here, and he gives us all different examples and different suggestions. You may find your amends in here, some of the stuff that you have to do. You may have stuff that's not even in here, whatever. As long as you do what you honestly believe is the right thing, you ask God for help and go over it with your sponsor. And before you make any amends, it's a good idea to go over it with the sponsor or somebody that's been through this process, just to make sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time. You know, don't go bananas making amends. Well, I'm sober for 2 days. Let me run out and make amends. Let's get through most of this program first before you get up to this make amends part, because sometimes a lot of things can go wrong when you're making amends. So it's really good to have advice from somebody before you do this. And I can't emphasize enough having a sponsor help you do this, because that's basically what a sponsor's for. A sponsor's not to tell you how to deal with every single little thing that comes up in your life. I went to work today and my boss yelled at me. That's not your sponsor's business. Your sponsor's supposed to walk you through this 12-step process. That's what your sponsor is for. And when you get to step 9, go along with what your sponsor says and follow the instructions that your sponsor tells you to do, and go over all your amends list and whatever with your sponsor, because there may be some amends that you can't make. You don't want to hurt somebody by making amends, so you may not have, that's an amends that you may not have to make. And you don't necessarily want to make amends that's going to get you locked up. You know, like was already mentioned, if you've got a criminal activity, go talk to a lawyer first, because they may know how to make the amends without getting you locked up. We're not trying to get ourselves locked up. If you get locked up, you won't be able to take care of your family or whoever relies on you, and you'll be hurting other people in the process. So we're not trying to hurt anybody. We're trying to stop hurting people, and we're trying to get out of trouble here. We're not trying to get into trouble. So make sure you go over this with your sponsor, you know, real good, point for point. That's pretty much all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thank you, Bill.
Yep, excellent. All right. We will close out with the serenity prayer and then open things up.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Thank you.